Shashi, you're probably having conversations. God, my forehead's now reflecting what the man?
This has to go on air.
How's
Can
that?
we start the episode with that?
Now I look like I'm in the dark.
I think you should brush your hair.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. I'm Chris Lockhart. Joined today, we have a full crew. We have Carol Hamilton, Bill Bensing, Phil Yanov, and Shashi Shrimali. So welcome everybody. Glad to see you. This is second episode in a row that we're sort of revolving around this one topic of coronavirus and pandemics in general. This time, I think we wanted to take up the discussion around, impact to our clients and their business, and maybe some ways in which, as consultants, we could actually help our clients kind of be a hero in this time of sort of unprecedented crisis that they may be facing. So, Bill, I kind of wanted to. We haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. I want to throw to you real quick and get your take on this topic and maybe some ideas around this. Could you elaborate on this for us a little bit, please?
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity to assess perspective because everybody can sit back. Decisions aren't necessarily being forced. The normal course of business has been completely adjusted. Not sitting back and asking strategic business questions, but asking the questions that the people in general don't give themselves the time to ask. Given the whole CDC recommendations and the social distancing, this is a prime opportunity to experiment with digital business models and digital service offerings. What can and can't you digitize? But even probably a bit more fundamental to that, an opportunity to experiment with how to experiment. If they don't experiment, they're just going to keep going status quo, but there's not going to be much more capital required right now just to say, hey, let's make this a digital offering. And so I think perspective is really sitting back. And also the last one is engaging. And I'm on this big citizen, quote unquote, citizen innovation. I just call it people being a product company, but experimenting with what does it mean to be a product company, and engaging people who generally don't build or build products for a company, engage them in the process.
Is there anything new or unique about this time? Are these things that we should be doing anyway with our clients? Or is there something about the needs right now? Bill mentioned cash flow and some other things, right? That maybe there's an opportunity here for us to help our clients.
Consultants can actually help client in the either ways, whether it's an upward trend, when the market is doing really good, and when the market is doing bad. That is one benefit of being part of this industry, because you can help them solve the bottom line problem as well as the top line problem. So I specifically consult for healthcare clients. And what I'm seeing over the last couple of weeks is some of our clients came to us and say that, hospitals, that you guys work remotely, all the time. Can you help us, digitize our workforce? Like how people can start working remotely, because there are some part of the health system or the health plan where people usually go there in person, but now insurance companies, because there are so many claims that is going to be filed because of this whole situation. So the show must go on, but they are not very well equipped with working in a virtual kind of environment. So here we are putting together our best practices on how we make it work. And that becomes sort of a quote unquote a service offering where clients actually need that. And that is not even our core capability. We never thought of this as our offering or our product, which we will ever take it to a market. There are some specialized places, but we have been fairly successful in doing that. That's number one. Second is healthcare has been probably a big laggard when it comes to anything, adopting digital, right? But with this particular scenario, we have been talking about telehealth, we have been talking about virtual health, we have been talking about remote monitoring and all those stuff. But nothing has become mainstream in last 10 years. Regulations has been around since 2008, 2010. and all these things were there, but nothing has become mainstream. I think this particular scenario or event will accelerate the adoption of digitization within the healthcare industry, and especially the providers, where I think when you get more sick when you visit the doctor's office, because there are so many viruses floating around with people. So is there a better way for the basic stuff we can continue to do it remote as compared to visiting in person? So for healthcare industry specifically, is going to accelerate the digitization, and we as consultant can help them in doing that, and also we can support them in if they are looking at reducing their cost. We call it cost optimization. So intuitively, as you rightly mentioned, it comes to the mind that, oh, we have to reduce the cost, let's cancel, let's like lay off people, but that's not the right solution. So we got to take a look at it more closely.
So Phil, I mean, Shashi's got, the giant healthcare company that he's working with, right? Or health payer, right? I mean, when I know your business model has shifted with some of these times, are you detecting among the people that you're talking to a sense of doom, or is this a sense of opportunity for them to go and maybe apply their skills in a way that they haven't before?
I think it really depends on where they are at and the kinds of clients they are dealing with. So some are completely done, right? I mean, there are some of us who are like, our regular revenue stream is just on pause. Nothing's going to happen there. But we've talked to other people who's like, you know what, we can make a gentle pivot here. We could do something different. So I think that there are all kinds of threats. We've said this a bunch of times. I mean, you might be threatened by not having your customers anymore because your customers can't get to you or don't have access to you. You might be threatened because of vendor relationships. Your supply chain gets interrupted in some way, or you might be right in the middle and you're non-essential services and the government can shut you down. So I think you can be in all of those places. And I have seen folks at both the levels of this is something we can figure out how to get through, and we are completely trying to figure out something new to do. And I've seen this week, I've been on a bunch of calls with a lot of people. I've seen calls all over the spectrum.
Wow. That's, in some ways, it's a little scary, actually.
I was on a call earlier this week where a guy, small business kind of guy, right? But I was on a call this week where the guy just done this pivot, and he sold $500,000 worth of personal protection equipment this month. Because it was adjacent to a vendor that he was already doing business with. I mean, he had to do some discovery, but that part was easy enough. But it was an adjacent vendor said, look, I have access to the stuff. Can you get it to where it needs to go? And he's like, I know how to do that.
Interesting. So what I'm wondering is, Carol, I know you deal a lot with sort of, executive level folks in training and whatnot. I don't know if you've been able to re-engage with them given the travel situation, but are you detecting a sense among sort of leaders of businesses that this is a moment for opportunity, or is this holy bleep?
Yes. So it depends on which industry you're in, which industry you're talking about. And there are some who say this is absolutely opportunity knocking. This is a really nice time to be in tech for sure. Those folks, the data providers, I think, and the data organizers, big data managers are gonna do very well in this if they can manage the timeline. And the timeline is what's come up more than anything. So we're looking now versus everybody was thinking, okay, this might happen for a couple weeks. Okay, maybe it's going to be 3 months or 30 days. And now, as of yesterday, we're now having conversations about 2021. And what can we do to limp through 2020 so that we are not vulnerable to this happening again, should there be round 2 of this? And then also so that we're in a position that we can virtually manage a small portfolio of various trainings and communications, and then ramp up again in 2021 when clearly we'll have all the answers.
Well, yeah. I'm delighted that somebody at least is thinking at that level. What if this takes a big chunk out of the rest of this year, a smaller chunk out of next year, and a small chunk out of the following year just in this, right? Because that's a very possible outcome, right?
Right. Well, and one of the things that was an unexpected consequence, I have a very small healthcare provider, but I happened to catch an interview where a healthcare provider in nothing but the kindest of ways was talking to a reporter and saying, oh, I just remember this one person who was brought in and we didn't know it was corona, or we thought it was, and we just sent him home and had him had aspirin, and we just keep thinking about that. And every bell and whistle went off in my head. We got to think ahead about lawsuits here. You know, who's talking to the media and what are they saying to the media? Because this is the stuff that's going to just go berserk on the other side of this. And I think we all have to take an empathetic breath here, but make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for a much bigger tsunami on the other side of this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, there's also, you know, it sort of just occurred to me, right, I don't know why it just occurred to me. It seems obvious now that I'm thinking about it, but like, you know, in this rush to like do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go do something. We're going to fire a bunch of people, whatever. But, you know, forget the people problem for a second, right? And let's talk about the tech that you were discussing, right? Is this now like, oh my God, we're going to slam in a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to, you know, increase our VPN connectivity. We're going to do a whole bunch of VDI over here and Citrix and all this other stuff. Is there a risk here that we're actually creating new technical debt, like by not thinking through in a strategic way our technological response as companies to this? In other words, is there an opportunity and maybe a responsibility on us as consultants to advise our clients, you know, slow down, right? Let's think this through. Let's plan in the longer term for some of these things so that we don't end up causing more problems when this is over than we had before.
I want to push that back to you for a second, Chris. And the reason I say it is, you know, I know you and Shashi in particular are dealing with larger clients. And my question I have is, you know, what is the sense you are getting from them about this kind of thing? And are they trying to solve the problems they were already solving just because of inertia? Or are they actually saying, wait a second, this really is a shift? Or do they realize that the impact of that is something that's already baked into their business model?
I'll let Shashi answer that one first, and then I'll give my take on it.
Okay.
No, I think they are looking at this as a temporary situation. So they want to, everybody's in a wait and watch mode. People know that situation is going to be like this for at least next 3-4 months, if not more. That's just a starting point. And hence they are taking those actions. But these technical debts are not baked into anybody's financial sheets. Absolutely not. This is something which they need to invest in. More and more companies are going to further do that. I don't think that is a technical debt, Chris, to answer your question. I think this is forward-looking. This is the need of the hour. Some industry have adopted this much sooner than others, but all the other industries are eventually going to catch up. And I remember we spoke about it once, right? We have to find a right balance between being 100% digital versus being 100% brick and mortar store. So this is going to further accelerate and help us find that right balance.
The client I'm working for, right? There's been like I don't want to say knee jerk, but there's been like a reaction like, oh, we got to go into war mode. Let's think about business continuity, right? Let's focus. Let's like stand up the teams and do this and do that. I think, you know, they're heavily dependent on contract labor, right? So they have that as a dependency for doing the routine, you know, maintaining the environments and running the whatever and this and that and the processes. So they do heavily rely on that. So I think there's some thinking there like, you know, this may be, you know, crap, maybe we shouldn't be so heavily dependent on external forces that we can't directly control, right? If India gets locked down, right? If Cognizant goes to a lockdown in India, right? How does that impact me? Maybe I need to own a little bit more of or have at least contingency planning around what would happen if I lose Cognizant. Not to just keep beating up Cognizant. But
No. I think you are hitting on the right point. We cannot be dependent on some other country. You have to find that balance. There will be an element of or degree of deglobalization, if there is a term which exists. Where
deglobalization. So You heard it here first. Deglobalization.
Yeah.
Reverse globalization. Yeah. And so, like, again, I think about my client, and as a consultant, one of the things that, I'm trying to set up a conversation with them about is, listen, you have a high dependency for a lot of your institutional knowledge on things that may go away, right? In other words, how many years worth of knowledge about systems and processes and business processes and business capabilities, how much knowledge are you going to lose if that external reliance, right, if that dependency turns into a liability, right? And now it's like, I'm faced with, let's be clear, right? I'm faced with an inability to actually execute some routine foundational things, one. Two, even if I can find somebody to do it for me, I can't call bullshit on them anymore because I don't have any knowledge about what they're doing because we don't have any of those skills. We outsourced all of that, right? And so, it's not about like, oh, let's insource everything and, quadruple the cost. It's not that. It's what is your plan? Are there some things that you could look at in terms of, let's say, an architectural framework, right? Like some core differentiated capabilities, right? Your core capabilities. Maybe you should have a plan to be able to execute on all of those core capabilities yourself and have knowledge in-house, owned by employees, in the employees' heads, not contract heads, right? Employees' heads, that your intellectual property is safe, right? In times like this. I mean, that's one of the things that I look at, because I think if my client goes and proposes that to the CIO, he's going to look like, wow, that's a really good point. We really should be doing that. Good job, right? Who did you have advise you on that? Oh, it was Chris Lockhart over here, right?
Are you getting that level of strategy thinking right now?
So what I would say is, and again, I think a lot of people are in heads down mode. Let's run the business.
Yeah.
You think about strategy, but picking up on the thread that you brought up, Carol, right? I mean, 2020 planning is going to get underway, or 2021 planning is going to get underway here shortly, right? You got to be thinking about these things as a business. And I think it's incumbent upon us as their advisors to help them, to help remind them there is a 3-year horizon here, guys. And what does it look like now, right? And let's keep that in mind.
And as consultants, how can we be the bridges between things also? Because I think that we have a perspective that others don't have across industries, across companies. And then to be able to come in and say, I think you should put your R&D in the room with this R&D and see what you can do, because you have different capabilities and possibly you can come up with product Z that's never been thought of, or service, whatever it is, and really milk the whole collaborative, disruptive collaboration thought. Bill, I see your head nodding, so please.
I'm about to coin a new buzzword. Everybody heard it here first, right? It's the anti-fragile portfolio.
Nice.
So everything you talked about is the anti-fragile. So that was it. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, his book, Anti-Fragility. He comes up with this concept of anti-fragility as the property of a system that increases its capability to thrive as a result of stress, shocks, noise, mistakes, faults, attacks, and failures, i.e. what's happened right now. So as you're talking about from an executive perspective and what consultants can do, I think you take on anti-fragility consulting, another buzzword heard here first, going through and helping them look, because this is the pessimist in me. I don't think much is going to change. We're going to come out of this and people are going to go back down. Not much is going to stick, except the fear and the hurt, which the fear will drive future decisions, not the good decisions made out of it. Because in general, let's just be blunt about people in business. They're not necessarily trained, nor do they have the perspective to take something like this and do anything but react from the hip and fear it. And so more entrepreneurial folks and intrapreneurial folks, they'll deal with this very well, because this is a huge opportunity. You've literally just can't do certain things. You put stressors on the system and they'll figure out how to de-stress the system. Those folks will. But to your point, as I look at from consultants and what we can do to help, it's sitting with our clients and saying, okay, right, you've just had one of the biggest stresses and shocks to the system. What can we do? Where's our bottlenecks at? Whatever that may be. And let's stop thinking a little bit about running the business as usual and start thinking about what does this look like going forward, and how do we keep, and I don't want to use the term risk mitigation. I hate that because it's overblown. Although as I'm introducing you to two new buzzwords, I don't know why I'm hesitant to use risk management. But
these things have been in existence forever. Companies always had, business continuity plan. You keep on writing, even when you are doing the whole, Chris, like any kind of a deployment of enterprise software, you put together a business continuity plan, and all those things have been existing. The question is, it used to be more like you are filling some paperwork and just getting it done. Now, when the actual thing happened, then all these things go out of the window. So the way to look at it has to change. And I assume there will be a lot more investment, because when the cost cutting things happen, then these are the first things to get suffered. Now, I think there will be a lot more after this whole thing. There will be a lot more investment in that area, and these things would be taken more seriously. I've been building BCP plans forever now, but I'm not sure quality of what the rigor it goes through.
Well, and this, I did want to bring this up because, Bill, you were talking about like a black swan event while we were doing our pre-roll here, right? Black swan events, they come out, you can't predict, all. Didn't we just have one in 2008? It wasn't that long ago we had another black swan event. Have we learned nothing, right, about business continuity? Have we learned nothing about how to run a business in crisis mode?
So
whatever we learned, we forgot. Isn't that the key? That our job is to come back and be the memory and say, I don't want to remind you of how bad that sucked, but as you go back to business as normal, isn't that my job to come back in and go, excuse me, could I just re-quote you, tell you what you were saying back then?
Well, but to the truth of this, didn't businesses actually implement their business continuity plan here? They had a place where they couldn't bring the people into work. Did they not send them home using SIP phones and all the kind of technology they were going to use anyway? Didn't it actually work? And if it didn't, tell me that. But isn't that what we're doing right now?
I wonder, right? Because, not at my client necessarily right now, but I do see like what I perceive to be panic, right? Like panic, chaos, right? Fire half the workforce, furlough everybody. Oh my God, right? As opposed to like a little more thoughtful, I don't know, in what my perspective would be, like a little more thoughtful way of doing it.
So what that entails is, I want to highlight one point on Chris's thought, right? So we spoke about the business continuity plans. So back in 2008, whatever happened, probably they thought about it, and the knee-jerk reaction to that debacle was getting rid of the people. But the way that whole 2008 thing was created was corporation made, right? So somebody goofed up majorly. This was not health hazard. What we are facing right now is health related. It's going to kill people. So either you save people or you save your economy. So it's like a double-edged sword at this point in time. And people were not ready for these kind of pandemics. They were not ready for this one. Hopefully they'll be ready for the next one if hopefully it doesn't happen.
Well, and to your point, a bit of Phil and Shashi, so a plan assumes that it has a basis of assumption about why the plan is enacted, right? What I'm seeing is, like, I saw this in Irma with a specific company at that point in time. They had first of all, they didn't have a business continuity plan. They shut down. They didn't know what to open back up. But then the second thing was their disaster recovery plan called for like 2 engineers and a third to go do this X, Y, and Z. Sat around a room and said, okay, who are the people that are doing this? And the group of people that put it together, nobody went. So the whole concept about plans is, it's the concept of planning that helps, but the plan first meets the situation. It's mostly always going to fail. And so even though we talk about, Phil, to your point, you're saying, well, people had SIP phones. Yeah, that's cool. But how many people have sent almost 100% of their company away to tax the VPN to actually see what it looks like for an extended period of time to manage this? And just because I have it in a 30-page document, this is what I'm going to do, AKA I have a plan, doesn't actually mean it works. They've never stressed their system. They've never tested their system. And this is why I love Amazon. Side note, you want to study something interesting, study the Simian Army that Amazon put out. They literally, in production, they go through and they take down complete data centers and make people respond to it. And that's actually how they build anti-fragile systems. They create shocks to their own system, see how their system responds, and then they go fix those shocks, and so it gets stronger next time.
You're talking about chaos engineers and things like that?
Yeah, the Simian Army is what I call. They have Chaos Monkey, they have the Big Gorilla, a couple things, but that's what they do is they release the software, and it's a part of site reliability engineering from a technical standpoint, but the whole broader concept of reliability engineering, some good older documentation on that, and goes to the point of like your backup plans is all reliability engineering. When things go unreliable, what do we got to do? And just because you have a plan, and this is at most companies, the plan, it's almost like, what is it? Was it Mike Tyson or who was it? The first time that the plan goes out the window, the first time you get punched.
So it's funny you are saying that. Yesterday I was watching TV and Bill Gates said pretty much on similar lines. Forget about corporations, even government was not ready for this kind of scenario. There was no scenario testing which was done, so you could be prepared on how to react to that situation. To your point, what you just mentioned, right? Inject problems within your system so that you can create an anti-fragile system, go and fix those. So nobody had that kind of plan and nobody did a scenario testing because they never expected the scenario to happen.
But so back to Carol's point though, isn't it our responsibility as their advisors to help them with that? Right?
Well,
maybe,
especially in the communications part.
Maybe you can't solve for unknown unknowns, right. But you can say, look, there are known unknowns, to paraphrase Donald Rumsfeld, right? There are known unknowns, and here's a superstructure, here's a framework within which you can operate in the event of several different kinds of situations that you should be prepared for, right? You should be prepared with, let's just go with the planning, as we were talking about planning, right? You should have a 3-year plan. And I don't just mean, we're going to be in, CICD heaven in 3 years. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about from a business perspective. What is my 3-year strategic plan? And what does that funding look like? And do I have visibility into that funding and my capacity and my demand so that when an event occurs, I can trigger, a more thoughtful analysis that says, you know what, these are my core capabilities. These are foundational to my business. I need to run those. But these other ones, this is my secret sauce. These are my differentiated capabilities. I also need to focus on these 2 things, maybe not all 10 of them, but these 2 are the most important, right? Some sort of prioritization or triage framework, right, that can adapt to a situation.
But if you start looking at the international ramifications and the mass confusion, that has not been a part of anybody's plan. And I would hope that changes going forward, and that the communication trees and how we're reaching out to each other and who's in charge would be really helpful when the politicians don't know.
So what can we do? What can we do to help our clients answer those questions?
Well, start talking about who are you, how do people hear from you? Because you are in a constant race with the media. And so I go back to when the Malaysian planes went down and they had a communication set up through Twitter, and they got they just got beat up for doing it that way. And the CEOs came out and said, we gotta communicate with these friends and families of the people who went down in that plane before the media has a chance to really scare the hell out of them with headlines. And so we want to have an immediate place where they can go and know it's us talking. And I think that leaders need to stand up and say, this is when you hear this from this format, whatever that format is, whether it's internal or some version of social media, do you know it's us talking? And we're responding to all of the garbage going on, that we're helping you sort through what's happening. Because I think when you get into these larger companies, that is probably creating a huge piece of chaos. And then you're adding in all the other headlines that are coming in, and now you've got an emotional aspect that was not baked into the plan.
People aren't trained, or nor do they think about, or do they try to educate themselves on how do you handle a chaotic situation. The quote unquote fog of war type approach. Nobody's going through doing scenario planning, doing war gaming, whatever it may be, to your point. So that's why this stuff happens. And maybe that is the outcome. And that's where we help, is go in and say, okay, let's war game this. Let's do this a couple times. I go back to the simian army. Amazon takes their stuff down. You cannot simulate a Google-sized environment, nor can you recreate it, nor can you recreate an Amazon environment. But you can't simulate it. You can simulate sections of it. You can simulate scope and scale. So what does that look like? And starting to ask those questions. I almost think that I won't call it a boutique industry, but there could be a boutique consulting industry around, and I'm going to overuse the term anti-fragile because I really like it, but building anti-fragile systems, broadly speaking, not IT, but going into companies and saying, okay, you're not going to be able to manage the chaos. First off, this is indefinite. There's no finite to it. You can't manage it. So don't think you can bring a basis of finite to this. So let's figure out how we do and manage this, and let's work on those skill sets.
Phil, you've been in technology now for several of these sort of disruptive events, right? Over, I don't want to say you've been around a long time, but I know you've seen a lot, right?
Yeah.
Right. Is there anything, so two-part question. One, is there anything fundamentally different this time around than some of these previous things, the events that have happened in tech? And then second, what were some of the things that we as consultants or contractors or advisors learned from those previous events that maybe are applicable now?
I think the issue here is this is a big event, and not only have we never been under quarantine before, our parents were never under quarantine. It was their parents that were under quarantine 100 years ago or whatever, right? But it was not, my mom was born in 1931. Her mother certainly saw World War I, right? And saw 1918 and what that was like to have mass quarantines in the United States, right? So we've never seen those bits. I think, I was thinking about all this stuff. It's our business continuity planning. Did it actually work? And I don't know. I think some of this is. Part of it's just great that the technology kind of got baked into everything we were doing, right? We all got used to carrying smartphones. They're great terminals. We've built a relatively robust, but not awesome internet infrastructure in the United States. Doesn't reach rural areas, falls down on Mother's Day kind of events. This is a Mother's Day event, right? It's at high capacity. I haven't seen the carriers talk about it, but surely they are at it. And it's Netflix and all the rest are downgrading the performance of their video streaming just to allow the pipes to carry what's going on because people are home and we're doing this. We're doing this kind of stuff right here. So all of that stuff is going on. But I think, there's obviously, in addition to the hand washing, there's a lot of hand wringing. But the whole, how are we in this moment? And it's like, no, man, we didn't see this coming exactly. Not that it wasn't unpredictable. We didn't see it coming exactly, but we took the best parts of the plans I hope that we had in place. And at the same time, we went back to some knee-jerk reactions that everybody has done every time before because we thought maybe it would work. I don't know. We don't know. So, people did those sort of things. I think about from Carol's side, oh my God, the terrible communications I've seen from some companies, completely and utterly tone deaf to their audience and the fear that they might be in or the uncertainty of their operating environment. And their stuff is, their communications reflects their own fear. So right. I think there's just a lot of stuff here, a lot of scared people doing some dumb stuff.
I want to pick up on that thread. Is there a consumer or customer experience play here, given the difficulties, given that people aren't always equally good at it, right? Is there an opportunity here for us to advise around customer experience?
Well, here, I'll make this quick, Shash. I think there's an opportunity, but this comes down to ingrained behaviors. The people that are going to change have leadership. Just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean you're a leader, because they have the leadership to do it. They're already doing it, and they're successful right now, a couple weeks in, a month into this. They're the ones successful ones. The other ones that aren't successful, have the tone deaf, it's just going to take for their leaders, their existing leaders, and I use leaders loosely, their existing management structure to move on. And maybe that could be some of the consulting provided. I think I want to be realistic. I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to be realistic. This isn't going to change a lot of people's behaviors in certain areas, but it may start altering future behaviors we'll see change 3 to 5 years down the road.
All of a sudden, everybody started reacting with, we got to take care of our customers. We've got to reassure them we're thinking about COVID-19. We got to really do this. And it seemed like every single email had somehow been cut and pasted out of the CDC's recommendations. And I thought, oh yeah, you cared. Yeah, this is right there, really feeling it with you. I thought this is such a missed opportunity to connect to humans. Find the writer in the group. Maybe you're the leader, you're the high-tech person, or you've got some other skill that got you there. But there's got to be some human somewhere in your organization who can write something to a customer that says, we really are thinking about you. We see what you're thinking about, and we are addressing it in this way, or we are attempting to. But cut and pasting didn't do anything except by the fifth one, just plain annoy me. I thought you have moved, now you've actually gone the other direction.
You know, nobody's customer avatar was scared witless before. They didn't start with that, right? And that's kind of where they are. And so no one came in. I mean, this is a journey map. And basically that person, whoever it was you were dealing with, they're afraid. And why not meet them there and then see if you can help them move forward, right? Just, it has been unhuman, right? But I'm convinced that it's the fact that companies themselves are scared. And some of them are so isolated from this. You know, was one of you guys? No, yeah, it was one of it. I'm not going to say names, but somebody had just told us the story of, oh yeah, the CEO's house is on some beach somewhere. You know, he's sheltering in place in a multi-million-dollar house. And it's like, yeah, this is terrible. I can't get room service.
Yeah, all the celebrities complaining about their boredom. I sit there and think, why don't you go volunteer in New York? Let's just put you into the hotline there. Yeah. I'm
gonna put this in again. I have committed, like other celebrities, to go without makeup all the way through this
awesome.
This thing. Yeah. It's just gonna be me. This is it. This is the way I look, folks. This is what you get.
My contribution is to really come down hard on fat shaming, because I've probably gained, I don't know.
right. Yeah.
Is there a cyber threat here also at play potentially? Is there is this an opportunity for criminals to take advantage of this?
Oh, absolutely. People are poking holes and stuff right now. I'd be going through, if I was a cyber criminal, I'd be going through feeling every vector I could, because people, VPNs, whatnot, people are just reacting and people are just doing it to do. Oh, absolutely. And
this is going to stress test an identity management system for sure, right?
This is an agile, what were you calling, Bill? Anti-fragile system testing, but not really testing. It's directly in production.
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
It's a Microsoft way.
Yeah. We're going to test the live version.
Exactly.
I want to ask your perspectives on what are some short-term and what are some long-term plays or things that we could advise our clients on to help them through this, not just to survive, but maybe to actually take advantage of, that sounds terrible, but to take advantage of the moment and actually thrive. In other words, come out stronger than when they went in. I'll give you one. I'll start this off, right? I think, the rush right now to look at discretionary spending, right? It's like, okay, well, we're going to cut discretionary spending. Well, maybe that's a short-term play, whatever. Maybe you need to speak to the investors or the street or something and show that you're doing something. But I think that's incredibly short-sighted, right? That spend was put in place for various tactical and strategic reasons, right? And it's only discretionary because it shows up on a balance sheet somewhere and looks bad, right? And you need to do something. I think a more appropriate response would be, look, we don't have to do this exhaustively, client, but let's spend 2 weeks and let us go through your portfolio, the things that you are doing, the things that you thought you wanted to invest in before this was going on. Let's take a look at your available capacity in terms of human capital, in terms of resources, and let's do a bit of triaging. Let's look at what is fundamental to your business. What are some secret sauce things that you want to do that you think it gives you a competitive advantage over your client or over your competitors, right? And let's make some smart decisions about what we can take out and what we actually really want to then invest in. Maybe this is an opportunity, Bill, you mentioned it at the beginning, I think, right? Maybe this is an opportunity to actually grow our top line, right? Not just reduce our operational costs, but actually grow the business.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that knee-jerk reaction, the idea of let's go ahead and cut that discretionary spend. I mean, that is because most people think that is the quickest way to preserve situational advantage, right? I'm trying to look for flexibility, and they assume that the flexibility is in their cash, when that probably isn't the place. It's what are people thinking? So I agree with you entirely. I took a group just this morning, through a SWOT analysis of each of their individual portfolios, right? What are you doing? What's what can we use to our advantage here? The threats in the environment that we're at this moment, what we be walking away from, saying, look, that's just contested ground. I can't do anything with that. But at the same time, we talked about discovering, identifying, and building trust into our opportunities and the folks that we're both doing business with, the people we could be doing business with, and saying, how can we be doing more inside that space? So, that's a standard tool inside the trade. Just go out and say, where are we inside that portfolio? What ought we to be doing?
I think that you have to look long term on how are you protecting your business from people coming in and making judgments, and especially around the whole idea that somebody on your staff may have been infected and therefore may have had access to customers or may have had access to each other. And God help us if someone dies. And I mean that from a very empathetic place as well as a financial one, which is it can destroy a business. And I think as the other piece, and I had a client this week accused of burying their head in the sand. And I don't care if you're a good leader or not, you have got to be visible. You are the visibility to the media. So gag the staff and then become the spokesperson who's then available to have the very conversations that Phil just alluded to.
First, be looking at it from the non-entrepreneur perspective. What is my top line opportunity right now? A huge opportunity to provide an immense amount of value in different industries has just opened up. What is that? And experiment quick. If I'm advising other people, a bit of it I'll just call reliability engineering. A bit of three things I think here: take 5 to 10% of your resources. And I'm not talking about capital, I'm talking about people. And go through and look at your system right now. Find your bottlenecks. Your system's broke. The system in general is broke. So find your bottlenecks. Explore solutions to those bottlenecks. You don't have to be everybody doing it, 5 to 10% of people. But then also experiment with how to experiment inside your company. I don't believe most companies, a lot of them still have the same product set. Nobody has a product mindset. The really good companies that are doing well right now have a product mindset. They know how to experiment with experimenting. And I'd almost be like, treat this like Jobs when he came back to Apple. When Jobs came back to Apple, he had 15 different computers. He cut it all down to one computer and got rid of all the peripherals, and he focused on doing one thing very well. This is the time to get back, and I think we've all alluded to this. Focus on what you're doing well, where you add core value, and then figure out how to continue adding that in the interim, but how to make that exponentially grow as we come out of this.
So for me, in the short term, communication is the key. The leaders need to come out and communicate in the right way. To Bill's point earlier, if some of the leaders are not good communicators, they need to have somebody within the team who is good at it, and the communication has to have an element of empathy. They cannot be ruthless and say that, consider your PTO as your day off, you take forced PTO, take this cut and that cut. All of us are in this together. That element of empathy has to be there. Now we understand the businesses are going to go through the down cycle. They will be cost pressure. So there are various ways to handle it. So we need to look at those opportunities. And some of the firms are doing it in a very, very nice way. For example, not taking bonuses, right? We understand having a job is important. If I make like $10,000 or $20,000 less than what I'm making, will I be on street? No. So if all of us can contribute through that manner, you can, sustain for a longer period of time. So that's like immediate short term. For medium to long term, they have to look for stress test their business and look for alternative business model. If something like this happens in the future, what is my market base? Where I can channelize more? How can I diversify even more? So those are the things that needs to be considered in these tough times. So plenty of opportunities out there.
So Phil, can you elaborate a little bit more on that SWOT analysis you did, and maybe give us the name of that, of that activity you run, if someone was to reach out about doing that?
Yeah, for several years, we've done this mastermind group, right? And the idea is we just bring together a group of people who are trying to do something together. In this case, we're all trying to, live our lives and sort of build a tribe. So the folks in there are primarily consultants at some layer, but they're in various different kinds of things, but usually small business type consultants. So we've been doing this for a long time. And today it just felt like the right thing to bring into the group was to say, all right, we're in environmental change. There's a big shift. We got to deal with the issues of self-care. We got to deal with the issues of family care and kith and kin, but we got to also say, let's do a SWOT on the businesses we're running right now. What are we really good at? What are we having trouble with? And in the new operating environment, what are our opportunities? Given this threat, what are our new opportunities to do something else? And it was just, it yielded some great and interesting ideas.
Is that something that people could reach out to you about, maybe conducting for them or on behalf of them or in a group setting?
Yeah, this is a funny thing. And this, by the way, is one of those things for me, which I hadn't given a whole lot of thought to. And that is, we've always done it in person. I've always really cherished and relished the idea of being in a room with all the right people and having this conversation. And I've had multiple people say to me over the years, you should do it remote. You should do it remote. And I always felt like I'm not going to have the eye contact I need. I'm not going to have the feedback and all that I really need in order for us to do good at it. Well, guess what? I don't get any of that now, whether I want it or not. So I have to do them through Zoom. It's worked out really well. I think we could, this has just worked out fascinatingly well. So we're able to do it. Folks are in various locations. Yes. So now I'm in the opportunities like, okay, I don't have to do this with just folks who live within 20 miles of me. I can do this with a much larger group. So if someone thought that they wanted me to do it for their group, or they wanted to jump into one of ours, or I think I'm going to end up creating another one now because I've got enough interest in doing one that's, just kind of the new group, if you will. Yeah, just reach out to me, Twitter or something, LinkedIn, and tell me about it.
Thank you, guys. Listen, I appreciate it. Always good seeing everyone virtually. And so we had Carol Hamilton, we had Bill Bensing, Phil Yanov, Shashi Shrimali. I'm Chris Lockhart. Thank you. And if you have an opportunity, go to the YouTube channel. In fact, you could just Google consultants saying things and you'll find sort of all the channels, the website, the YouTube channel. We're on Anchor, right? Apple, Google, everywhere if you want just the audio version. But subscribe and also like some stuff. And of course, it's on LinkedIn. So go comment and ask some questions. So appreciate it very much. And we will see everyone next time. Thank you.